Welcome back, everyone. Moving ahead with the panel discussion two for the day, which is technologies and the future of banking on big tech, how AI, ML, DL, and RPA shall deliver on industry expectations. So we have Mr. Kartik Sharma, Group Head, BFSI Governance Healthcare, Elets Technomedia, playing as a moderator for the panel. Mr. Utpal Chakraborty, Head AIS Bank. Mr. Shibu PS, Chief Information Security Officer, Indian Bank. Biju K as Chief Information Security Officer, Federal Bank. Mr. Ankeet Bhat, Chief Strategy Officer, MapmyIndia. Subraneel Bose, Director, Very Large Enterprise Business, Lenovo India. So without any further ado, I'll hand over the panel to Mr. Kartik Sharma. So you can take this ahead.
Thank you, Hina. Thank you for introducing us in this very important session. And as the panelists know, and all the audience might have seen in the agenda, that this panel discussion is the topic technologies and the future of banking on big tech. How artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, robotics, process automation, technologies, how shall these technologies deliver on industry expectations? And in current scenario, it is a very important topic. And before that, I just welcome all of you to this very wonderful event which Elets Technomedia is doing its fifth annual BFSI CTO Summit, which we are doing on 13 May, today and tomorrow. And it is going live on our virtual platform Avatar. So I welcome all the audience which has started joining us. And I also welcome the eminent panelists. Once again, I welcome Mr. Utpal Chakraborty, Head of AI from Yes Bank, Mr. Shibu PS, Chief Information and Security Officer from Indian Bank, Mr. Biju K, Chief Information Security Officer from Federal Bank, Mr. Ankeet Bhat, who is a Chief Strategy Officer in one of the most innovative companies in country, MapmyIndia, and Mr. Subraneel Bose, Director of very large enterprise business of one of the renowned companies in the world, Lenovo, and he's Director for very large enterprise business in Lenovo, India. So I welcome all of you in this panel discussion. And we all know that the burning issue which is going on in this country right now is COVID pandemic. And this COVID pandemic has changed a lot of dynamics in various sectors and also in BFSI sector. So when we talk of technology, my first question will be from one of the bankers, and I would like to start with Mr. Utpal, who is heading the AI, who is head of AI in Yes Bank. Utpal, I would like to ask you that what has been the impact of COVID, and do you see a COVID? Just if you can tell about the impact of COVID and the transformation in technology implementation in banks. Utpal, you are please unmute yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Kartik. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Your voice was breaking a little bit, but I could hear the question. Definitely, I think as we all know, in this pandemic, although there is a huge loss in terms of life, in terms of the business, in terms of jobs for many of us. So the problem, if you look at it, is unprecedented kind of a calamity, you can say, in the entire world and for all the industries. But at the same time, there are some positive things also we can take from this particular pandemic, because see, in every negative thing there will be some percentage of positive things, and which is like the huge focus on digitization and adopting new technologies. Okay, which is something you can say the blessing that is coming from this pandemic and the lockdown scenario. So coming to banks and financial institutions today. So today the core focus is basically rendering more and more services into their digital channels. Okay, so whether it's net banking, mobile banking, your chatbots, WhatsApp banking, or any other types of lightweight channels. So the core focus is rendering more and more services so that they can digitally provide the services to their customers and the users. So that is one area. And when we talk about this kind of channels or giving that kind of a seamless experience to the customers, then definitely technologies like AI, machine learning, and all other things that comes into picture, because those are the technologies basically enable the digital channels in one way or the other way. So here, definitely AI machine learning is playing a very major role. And apart from that, also in the financial institutions today, they are also trying to see like how um, uh, uh, the different services and also the different operations can be managed in a remote kind of a scenario wherein probably the employees are working from home, most of the employees, but still my services and my all other things should be 100% up for my customers. Okay, so that is another area which is getting a lot of traction, and different fintechs are coming up with a lot of innovative ideas and a lot of innovative solutions, like how to enhance this kind of services. Okay, and leveraging news and technologies, how we'll be able to operate in a 100% up manner without giving any kind of trouble to our customers in any kind of scenario. So may it be lockdown, may it be a similar kind of pandemic, or may it be any kind of disaster that may come. And I think that kind of a preparation is very very essential for tomorrow, right? Because today probably it is COVID. Tomorrow some other virus may come. Nobody knows, right? It could be more dangerous. So one part is definitely we'll have to save ourselves health wise, or but the second thing is it should be the business should run seamlessly. It should not be impacted in that way, because if you look at the impact, the impact on the business probably is much more than any other impact that COVID has put today us into. So to sum up, I mean to go, sorry, I'll not take much time, but to sum up, I think there is a huge focus on the digital channels for any financial institution, and not only financial institutions. I would take about any industry. Okay, everyone is today trying how I can provide my products, my services, or whatever it is through digital means. Okay, so that's the core focus. Number two, newer and newer innovative ideas. The fintechs and banks are coming up. How I can operate without going into office from home itself. I can manage everything, and my customer will not even realize that there is a pandemic or something like that when they do banking or something like that. So these are the areas which is actually getting revolutionized after this pandemic and this COVID situation. Yeah.
Right. Thank you, Utpal, for throwing light on the areas which are getting transformed and revolutionized in this pandemic times. I would also like to ask one of the CISOs, and I will choose here Mr. Biju K from who is Chief Information Security Officer from Federal Bank. When things get transformed in pandemic, I would like to ask you that what has been the investment in cybersecurity? Has it been increased or decreased? And how cybersecurity and this sector of security, digital security in the banking sector, how has it been impacted? And what has been the focus now?
Yeah, thanks, Kartik. Hope I'm audible.
Yes.
Hello. Yeah, so to the question raised
Yes,
by
yes.
you, so investment in cybersecurity, so that has always to continue irrespective of whether it is a COVID kind of pandemic or any other kind of situation. Because as you all know, the threat scenario, the threat landscape, all this changes continuously. In fact, it is very dynamic, and whatever technology or whatever security solution what we consider as safe today, tomorrow the situation may be different. There will be many new vulnerabilities identified. Some will go out of scope. Like that, attackers may come up with the new methodologies like that. So it's a continuous improvement, I will say, and in no organization can shy away from that. Investment in cybersecurity continues to grow. It has to happen on a regular basis. And coming to the specific question during the COVID pandemic, as we all know, we are seeing increased threats, particularly from many countries, considering the fact that almost all organizations are now working on a work from home environment, wherein, as you all know, the boundaries has disappeared. So earlier, when the environment was totally different, where the employees or the users, particularly those privileged users, were connecting from the organizational network, there was something called a perimeter which was defined, and there were a lot of controls which are introduced at the perimeter level, and we all believed that these are reasonable security controls. So with the COVID pandemic and with the kind of environment we all are working today, essentially the environment totally changed, and the threat scenario and threat landscape also changed a lot. Some amount of additional investment by way of new security tools, establishing secured connectivity to the employees, so that the compromise or data leakages are not happening. Like that, new investments certainly were warranted during this COVID period also. On one side, I will say it's a continuous improvement, and other side, the COVID pandemic made us improve little more quickly on certain areas. Like Utpal mentioned, the blessing from the pandemic was that the digitization improved very quickly, which did not happen in the last multiple years. It happened over a few months. The security side also had to adapt with the technology change and the change in work environment. Certainly, for that investment has to happen.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Biju, for this. And I would like to ask Mr. Shibu, there's one question on the similar lines. When we talk of, as this topic talks about these big technologies like ML, AI, and robotics. So I would like to ask you, Mr. Biju, that for a CISO, like how do you see these emerging technologies, these big technologies, what sort of role they play in a CISO's approach towards cybersecurity? How do you see these big technologies to play an important role?
Thank you, Kartik. This AI, ML, this kind of technology, as far as these technologies are commonly called as disruptive technology, whether it is AI, ML, or what is called that IoTs. And of course, these technologies are there for improving the business, as well as enhancing the customer experience and their meeting with their expectations and dealing with their digital products. These technologies are really disruptive technologies. It is called disruptive technologies. Of course, 100% it will enhance the customer experience as well as improving the business. But as far as a CISO is concerned, it's always concerned about the security. And as a CISO, one should understand, or is always a due diligence part from the CISO to analyze the technology in the security perspective, because these kind of technologies, the scope of these technologies are very huge. And if it can improve the business, or if it can enhance the customer experience, it can be maliciously used by the malicious actors also, or hackers also, because these technologies are not proprietary to anyone. It can be used maliciously by hackers also, and a new kind of attack or a new kind of threats can come out of these technologies. So, as a CISO, definitely we should concentrate on what are the risks coming out of this kind of technologies, because that is more important to identify the risk and analyze the risk. What kind of impact that particular technology can create in the environment? That is more important than a CISO's point of view. As I told, because this is not a proprietary thing, it can be the attack using these technologies can be very lethal, and it can be very crucial for the organization. So this is it is always that what's called that CISO's main objective to identify any kind of threats and envisage the threats, whether it is this kind of technology or any kind of things globally, what is happening and what kind of threat it can create to the organization, whether the possibility of whether any possibility is there for that threat to come into my organization using these technologies. These are our most important aspects. So CISO's point.
Right, Mr. Shibu. Thank you so much. And you also spoke about the importance of these technologies for business development in the company, which is very important. I would like to come to the next speaker, and I will ask one question to you, Mr. Ankeet Bhat. You are Chief Strategy Officer of one of the most innovative companies, MapmyIndia, and especially your company is a premier company in location technologies. So when we talk about the driving the business of a company, so how a technology like location technologies, IoT, or machine learning, or artificial intelligence, how they can be used by this banking and finance sector to drive their business? If you just throw some light on that.
Thanks, Kartik, for the question, and I hope you can hear me all clear.
Yes.
So what's happened essentially, and I think great opinions from everyone over the last couple of minutes. But yes, essentially over this very difficult situation for the world and especially our country right now, digital technologies have kind of come to the forefront, and the pillars of of this technology essentially. One is obviously the cloud. So how do you take everything that you have and how do you be more open to taking all of it to the cloud? How do you learn from the systems and the data that you've already generated and reference it with data that's outside? One good reference is location, right? So because that's the physical world, and that is basically what is all around us: buildings, places, demographics, businesses, images of streets around India. All of this is very critical information to take decisions around. Where do you be present? So because of that, there is this confluence of data from, and we've worked with a lot of the banking institutions in this last 2-3 years, who've essentially said that, hey, we want to completely move to a digital enterprise. What are these? How do we kind of mingle with the information and the technology that you have as a mapping provider, and what data we all and that's been a very interesting journey because we've been at the forefront seeing what companies are actually doing to essentially grow business digitally, and also to to utilize these technologies to reduce NPAs, lend easier, all of this. So from a data perspective, what we've seen is when there is verification, collection, all of these, the whole C2C, which is entire customer life cycle, we've seen technologies being embedded all through that. One is from visibility of the customer itself. So when there's a KYC happening and there's a digital KYC that can be done, how do you get the exact location and the address of the customer as he is interacting over video, just like all of us are? Right? So how do you reduce that? Because then you reduce your costs. You're able to digitally onboard the customer. We've seen a huge trend over the last 2 years that customers are being onboarded digitally, and at the same time, when they are being onboarded, their location is being pulled because all of us have phones, and because of that location, you can actually get the exact house address of the customer. So that's one very interesting trend we've seen, and it solves some cases. It might not solve some cases, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of debates around it. But it's definitely grown, and as that data and as the camera input sensor, the location input sensor grows, I think people can be more and more verified and onboarded digitally. So that's the first thing we've seen. Second is obviously customer behavior on a whole. So as there's more data being generated, you can take a better guesstimate if what the customer behavior will be in different pockets. So we've seen customers essentially learning from their own base of negative customers. So customers that are behaving not correctly. And if there are more and more customers coming from those areas, they are becoming more cautious about what risk they take and what interest rates they do. So we've seen product variability at the source itself. So very interestingly, using some machine learning, you're able to say that, okay, these customers in these areas have shown these kind of behaviors, so I might be a little bit more careful. So that's also very interesting. So you can have variable, rates in different areas, and you can essentially you can take more risk, less risk, that's depending on your business. And we've seen something interesting from an auto loan perspective. So as auto, or I would say even from, as your essentially not only auto vehicle, but also like large equipments. And as lenders are lending this out, there is a very large chance in the pre-pandemic era there were a lot of NPAs around. Okay, where is this asset? So we see IoT as a technology being embedded into this. So essentially, lenders are giving out their are lending these assets with some kind of device that helps them know the asset, like helps them know how the asset is performing, or is it even there, what's the location. And that's a true usage of IoT. And the lenders sometimes we've seen also try to monetize this data, because they can take it to an insurer and say, hey, I know this. In a vehicle case, they can go to insurer and say, I know this behavior. Would you want to reduce your insurance because it's a very safe drive? Or they can go to an OEM and say, hey, I have all this data. Would you want to take it and maybe change your product? So you see very interesting business models come up, and lenders are increasingly embedding these devices because it not only saves and reduces their NPA. So we've seen many cases where people are able to like get the asset back, recover the asset very quickly. So that's one. And also, like I mentioned, the camera and speed and satellite images, these are very interesting, and you can do a lot of learning on top of that to understand that on an India level. Let's say there is a lot of satellite images, and you can see the change. So where should you be present, right? Where are the growth areas? Where are the more buildings? Where's the more construction happening? And where do you focus that specific lending product? So we've seen from a satellite image perspective, even from a street image perspective, as we are building out, a lot of street imagery, you can know how many businesses are there, and even in a tier 4, tier 5 city. So I think all of this democratization of data and learning around that is truly transforming, everyone. And I would say, especially in the banking industry, everyone's trying to operate like a startup or like a tech company, and that's something that we've seen very deeply and very fast, actually. So it's been very encouraging how companies are adopting this technology.
Right, rightly. Very interestingly, you have talked about how banks can, work on their lending products. Can drive their lending products through the usage of such technologies, which can be really transformative, and that's really great. And now I would like to ask the question to Mr. Subraneel Bose. Subraneel, you are director of very large enterprise business in Lenovo India. Lenovo is one of the global leaders in technology. So I would like to, ask you a question, that how do you see these, because you are looking at the global perspective. Your company is working across the globe with various financial institutions. So how do you see financial institutions using AI and MI in reaching out to the customers, and what effectiveness does it offer? So just give us some idea. You are on
Yes,
mute,
sir.
Subraneel. Yes, yes,
Are you
please.
able to hear me?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, thank you, Kartik, for that question, and good afternoon to everyone. So, globally, what we see Lenovo is a platform provider, and not only a hardware platform, but we are also provider of frameworks, software framework for development of AI and ML technologies. And there are a lot of new areas which are also coming in. So, generally, I would just like to reiterate what my other colleagues mentioned earlier. Definitely, globally, cybersecurity is one area in which there is a lot of interest, and that there's a lot of movement which is happening with respect to even AI. So the standard signature-based endpoint protection is something which everybody wants to go beyond, and something has to be done where active surveillance of an endpoint can be done using AI/ML, because that's the speciality of AI/ML. And behavior analytics can be used, that you can check that, okay, what is the consistencies or inconsistencies which is happening. So endpoint security can be done on a real time using AI, and that's one of the key area which is emerging. Apart from that, there are about maybe more than a dozen use cases. So many use cases were talked about. Uh, Apart from the digital technologies, where you try to make it easier for the customers to, try to use AI and have a better UX, there are ways in which premium branch banking is also considered. uh, while in digital way, when you do deal with customers online, you use AI to do a profiling, and you also do sometimes there could be crawling on a social media and try to find out the overall profiling of the individual who was trying to interact with the bank. And based on that profiling, can there be targeted messaging? Can there be targeted offering which can be given to the customers? For example, if a young person is bought, say, a ring in a online jewelry store, so would if the bank gets to know about it, would there be an opportunity to offer a home loan, assuming that he would be probably going for? And would there be an opportunity to offer a personal loan that probably he would be going for a wedding? This thing. A similar kind of profiling you can extrapolate to premium branch banking also. Obviously, right now during the COVID scenarios, there is a lesser amount of people who are going to the branches, but branches are active and there are some customers who need to go. So can we use things like computer vision or facial recognition, where the customer is profiled the moment he's entering into the branch, and there he's guided to particular product categories based on the profiling which exists in the banking system. There, one more new areas which is emerging is the edge computing area. So, sometimes because of the latency which is there in the networks, there is a decision making takes time. But this kind of immersive experience, if you want to give it to the customer, and you want to do this quickly, it needs to happen very fast. So edge computing can help a lot in this regard. So a lot of new areas which is there. I mean, loans and online KYC, our fellow panelists talked about. But there are a lot of new areas which are coming up. Another new areas which is coming up globally is a collaboration uh, with retailers, where self checkout, automatic self checkout systems are happening, which can interface with mobile payment systems, where a person can, without the help of anybody in a specialized area in the retailer, he can pick up material using computer vision. The camera detects what he's picking up, it builds it, and using mobile payments or his profiling, using facial recognition, the person can make the payment without any kind of disruption. He can avoid any kind of queues, whether while he's picking up, whether he's doing the checkout. And I think the participation has to be there, not only between the by the retailers, but also with the financial institutions in this. Similarly, extrapolation of this we have seen in Europe, especially, is as facial recognition technology has become more advanced with AI/ML, and cash withdrawal using facial recognition in ATMs has also gotten some bit of speed. And mobile payments using facial recognition, a lot of mobile phones use facial recognition today. They are able to use this to make mobile payments. So a lot of new trends have emerged. We see a clear pickup in the platforms, the GPU based platforms, which are very specific to AI, ML, computer vision, and RPA, that is gaining grounds.
Thank you, Subraneel. It's great to know your optimism about these technologies to pick up in India as well. I would like to ask you a question, Mr. Utpal. As Mr. Subraneel, talked about various applications of these big technologies, and I also researched one fact. Maybe it's not 100% correct, but there has been a news that the applications of AI in banking is likely to bring opportunities worth $550 billion. So there is a huge opportunity in applications of AI, and as also Subraneel said that there are a lot of applications, potential applications to happen in India also. I would like to ask you that how this sector is planning to utilize this opportunity, and do we see more of AI, ML being implemented for more business intelligence in this sector? What is your take on this, Mr. Utpal?
Yeah, thank you, Kartik. So uh, yes, of course. So there is a huge focus on these technologies today in the financial, and that's why you see, like in many banks, they have started their data science COE or data science particle. Okay, so actually, if you look at the entire landscape, then there are multiple things. The first thing is the data engineering part. Okay, so the banks and financial institutions definitely before moving full fledged into a AI kind of a journey or data science kind of a journey, they will need to focus on the data engineering part, wherein they build their customer 360-degree data lake or any kind of data, consolidated data, distributed data ecosystem. Okay, wherein they get those data easily available for your machine learning models to actually ingest those and give different kind of recommendations to different. So, and there are two areas wherein the focus is more today. One is the advanced analytics part. So, analytics was always there in banking for more than a decade. Most of the banks they are using in one or the other form. But now it is more like a advanced analytics, wherein the predictive and prescriptive part that came up, and for which actually you require data from all your sources, and that's where the data lake building and all those things are coming uh, uh, up in most of the financial institutions today. So so now if you want to go for this advanced predictive and all those analytics, definitely AI and ML comes into picture, right? So either you use statistical models with R and all those things, or you use vanilla machine learning model, or nowadays even deep learning models can also help. And the high-end visualization tools like Tableau, Power BI, and all those things, right? So this is one area, okay, which is getting a lot of traction and a lot of this thing with AI ML. The other area is actually building some known use cases in banking and this thing. Okay, so whether it is in the capital market or consumer banking, okay, or on the insurance side. So if I talk about the entire gamut of finance, then in all the sectors there are already known areas, okay, which are basically qualified for this AI ML kind of solutions. So they are building a lot of solutions, like many of our previous speakers has already mentioned, like smart identity management with the computer vision and all of that video analytics kind of technology. So like now you can actually safeguard your ATM, okay, with this kind of technology, with your CCTV kind of things, right? So it will continuously monitor your CCTV things, and it can identify whether there is a human intrusion or an animal intrusion inside your ATM. Because in many of the rural areas in India, you will see like cows, buffaloes, dogs are entering into ATM, or somebody is trying to destroy your ATM, or somebody is trying to fight with your private security officer. So it can automatically detect, okay, through your CCTV footage, and it can generate a real-time alert to your admin team so that they can take some actions, right? So those kind of things are coming, and similar kind of solutions in a different flavor will be deployed on bank premise and in lockers and all other places. So that is a huge area. So computer vision, so rightly, the previous speaker has rightly mentioned that computer vision and video analytics is one area which is going to be very, very hard in smart identity management, and there are numerous solutions on that. Okay, so so that is another area. Second thing, the location map and all those things. So the other speaker talked about brilliant solutions. Okay, so these solutions are also going to come in a big way. Okay, and these are required essentially. It is not like that. It is a choice today. It will be essential for building such kind of solutions. So that is another area. Now, apart from that, there is another huge opportunity, like which is called embedded AI. Okay, wherein how, so I have got my banking system, I have got my core banking system, I have got banking systems for loan and all those things. So these systems are working efficiently and serving me for last 10, 15 years. So and these are well-proved systems, right? Now, but the thing is that how I can bring some intelligence within some parts of this large enterprise systems. But that is going to be another area. And if you want to bring that intelligence, then definitely you need to apply either machine learning or deep learning into different parts of that system. Okay, so you are not going to replace that system, but you are going to make that system more user friendly, enhance customer experience, make it intuitive, make it little bit of adaptive kind of a system. Because now our cyber security experts has talked about this thing. So we require adaptive systems, right? Which can adapt to the scenarios and so your rule-based systems doesn't work. So here there is a huge opportunity of embedded AI, which is essentially how to bring that cognitive element, human cognitive element, within the enterprise systems of my ecosystem. And there will be a lot of work that is going to happen on that in banking and finance. And as I told you, in all the areas of banking and finance, whether it is consumer banking, whether it is your insurance or in your capital market. So insurance industry is also, largely revolutionized by this thing. So now smart or cognitive insurance claiming. Okay, so now basically all your back office works. You can do all processing of the unstructured documents in matters of minutes. Okay, which is to take like days for a large team to actually eyeball through all the claim documents that are submitted from a hospital or so which includes all your bills, your diagnostic reports, your room bill. Okay, so some are machine generated, some are human generated, some are like normal structured documents, some are completely unstructured documents, and people used to go through. So there used to be thousands of people sitting, and they used to go through all the documents and then come up with a report with some checklist, right? So today with cognitive unstructured document processing, you can essentially, it is already started. It is not like that I'm talking something new. In many of the insurance companies, at least I know outside India, they have started. So they can process those kind of documents in matters of minutes. Okay, and in that way, your claim processing time, okay, will be reduced to only a couple of days. It used to be, and still in some of the insurance companies, when actually the hospital gets the amount from the insurance company, it takes months, okay, which will come to probably a couple of days, 2-3 days with all other this thing. So these are some areas where it is going to be revolutionized, and it is already revolutionized in fact. And also coming to quantum computing. Now quantum ML is very important, and which will be getting a lot of traction in coming 2-3 years. And already some of the even Indian banks have started working with Microsoft because Azure has now released their quantum, some of their quantum services. So, and they will be able to do a lot of optimization problems, because the banking and finance as a whole, you will see there are many mathematical and optimization problems. So this is kind of a what do you call? These problems are already there. So now with quantum ML, okay, quantum machine learning, it will be easier to solve those kind of things. So you can actually process humongous amount of highly dimensional data with quantum ML, and you can get the results almost real time. So many of the things that we are doing today are postmortem, right? So that you will get the analytics and all those things will get actually real time. It will not be a postmortem. So these are some areas. Yeah.
Right, Utpal. Explained the various aspects of AI, ML, and these technologies, and how banks can optimize their business through it. From business, I'll again come to the part of operations, like for a CIS. So if I ask you a question, Mr. Biju, from Federal Bank, to, today there's a environment of hybrid work. Some of the people are working from home, some people are working in branches. Less. So what sort of challenges do you see as a person who looks after information security in this hybrid work environment, and how you can use these big technologies to overcome these challenges, if you throw some light?
Yes, Kartik. That's really a valid question in the current times. Uh, so just like in continuation of the earlier discussions, no, so in the work from home environment, the threat landscape has totally changed, and uh, it may not be prudent to purely depend on some of the earlier security controls which every institution might have deployed. So in the new environment, the basic issue is that no, the perimeters have vanished and connectivity is to be extended to the each and every employee's home. Exactly, if you say. So earlier, the employees were sitting in the organizational network using their own organization endpoints. So it was totally owned and managed by the organization. So whereas in the current time, where most of the people, maybe even more than 75 to 90% of the employees are working from home, the most important challenge is to ensure that there's a secured connectivity established between the employee and the organization. So there are no malware or malicious codes coming into the organization network on one side. They'll be protecting the organization, and on the other side, when the employees are given connectivity with their from their home environment, maybe even using their own uh, laptops or computers, adequate controls needs to be ensured to ensure that data leakage is prevented. So there are basically two aspects to be focused on. One is to provide a very secure environment. The organization is protected against any kind of cyber attacks, and on the other side, there is no data leakage happening. So effectively, we need to scale up the kind of security infrastructure, both for extending the connection. So that can be achieved by way of secure modes like VPN or VDA kind of infrastructure, coupled with other controls, including ensuring security of the endpoints to a reasonable level, monitoring the activities. That is where the main discussion point, that is the use of AI and ML. So there also from the security monitoring side, the AI and ML can be utilized to quickly identify any unusual patterns, or that kind of security monitoring can be established. Then, in addition to that, some more additional tools in the current environment to ensure the adequate protection against unauthorized copying of data, etc., needs to be ensured. So, particularly that the scenario, the work scenario changes vis-a-vis the group of employees are sitting in the office location versus one employee sitting alone in an isolated place. So we cannot rule out any kind of insider threat in the current environment. So the organization need to scale up the security monitoring and the controls toward these kind of activities.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Biju. And Mr. Shibu from Indian Bank, I would like to ask you, as Mr. Shibu, as Mr. Biju talked about, to ensure that no data leakages happen, and even in this hybrid work environment, there's no security lapse. I would like to ask you this one, this thing, dark web goes on. So how a CISO deals with this thing of dark web, and what are the mechanism to be adopted to mitigating the risk of data availability in dark web? Do you have something to share about it?
Yeah, Mr. Kartik, yes, Mr. Biju was pointing out, it's most important for a CISO to see to ensure that okay, this data is not leaked out. But this the terms that say deep web, dark web, these are all actually these have been the mystery terms till a couple of years back. But now many of the people are aware of this. What is deep web? What is dark web? And because of the way the media is coming out with the data leakage, it is happening on a almost on an hourly basis, or I can say on a daily basis, or even hourly basis also. Yes, this particular organization has been breached and the data is available to the dark web. So this, of course, this dark web, it's a mystery because it was the items appearing in the dark web or deep web is not indexed by uh, any kind of search engines like Google or Yahoo. And as it was not indexed, it is not able to be searched through the traditional or conventional browser also. So these are the specialties of dark web. And so, for a common man, accessing the dark web or say crawling through the dark web is nearly impossible. It requires a specialized people and with specialized skills for crawling the dark web. Even though we know that okay, data is available in the dark web, you just like that you cannot browse it or you cannot retrieve the data or you cannot get the data what is available in the dark. So in this case, most of the banks rely on the service providers, specialized skilled service providers, who are very few in the globe, who are doing the dark web monitoring, including the crawling of dark web. So they may be acting as a kind of attacker also in other name. Then only they will be able to. It's not. It's very because it is so. You just like that. You cannot have a kind of account in the dark web. There are a lot of authentication mechanisms you are identified. So these people are experts and these people are professional, and banks are heavily dependent on service providers. And whenever any data breach is happening or not, even on a daily basis also these people are providing the reports to the banks for the data available. And most of the time what we observed was whatever the data provides by the service providers from the dark web is either incomplete data or inaccurate data, or it may not be relevant, irrelevant data. So scrap data, what I say, most of the times we have scrap data. It is incomplete. Maybe it is a mixture of two card numbers, or if the card number is matching, then name may not match, or if name is matching, then another expiry date is not matching. So these kind of data are available in the dark web. That also is taken by the service provider and providing to the bank. So on a daily basis, even the bank definitely should have a due diligence to see whether any data is available and take whatever the preventive action. Suppose if the data is matching some way, or the card number is at least matching, means to take action on hotlisting those cards and informing those customers. Unless and until there is a major breach, some database as it is compromised, or some data, the payment wallet is compromised. Otherwise, most of the data, whatever we are getting, is inaccurate data, I can say. But this is the way bank can mitigate the kind of cuts, because we can depend on the vendors, and of course these technologies what we are mentioning about, say AI, kind of things, that also will enhance the crawling technologies and how to mitigate the dark web. So these technologies also again it is a kind of the business. This technology is used for the business. Same technology is used to protect the business, and the same technology is used by the attackers to get into the business or get into the system. And again, we are protecting with further technologies. So this is a cat and mouse game, and it's a continuous process. These technologies definitely it will get evolved, and it will give some kind of solution for this dark web crawling also. That means tomorrow we don't know, bank ourselves can use this kind of technologies to crawl into the dark web and take a preventive or corrective action. So this is what it's again. It's still it is coming. It's going as a mystery, but yes, we have the solution to the service provider. Most of the banks are doing it.
Right. Thanks, Mr. Shibu, and very well explained about this concept of dark web. And but I would like to ask you, Mr. Ankeet, from MapmyIndia, as we are talking about the challenges in this COVID pandemic times, how do you see the technology deployments, especially in this pandemic time, and how do you see these financial institutes, these banks and financial companies, how should they approach their customers, better in these COVID pandemic time with these modern technologies, big technologies? Ankeet.
Yeah, so I think one of the main issues, or I would say the challenges we've all seen, is like traditional infrastructure, and there is this cloud infrastructure, and how do you kind of seamlessly move to that, because there is a lot of confidential information, and the whole industry is about confidentiality and privacy. So that is a very important thing, and how do you use that data and where do you send it? So from that perspective, we have seen that banks are becoming more open, definitely, very open, and it's surprising how open they're getting to utilizing this. But obviously, it is still limited. is limited to information that is not related to specifics of a consumer, which is definitely not allowed. But generics, which kind of data we possess, it's a generic data. It's about the world. It's about buildings and car population and people and all of that stuff, right? Like businesses. So adopting that information becomes easier because then you can mingle that with your information in your own environment. But taking confidential information out and then the security concerns, as a lot of the previous panelists also mentioned, is very, very I would say a very great topic right now. So threading down that line, like what are the best practices, what do you send, what do you not, I think that is still a little bit it's a control thing. I don't think so it can be that everything can suddenly move on to the cloud and every customer will speak with you through the cloud. Unlike maybe other services like e-commerce, I think all customer interactions initially happen through something. You don't even speak to a person when you're doing business with an e-commerce company. And then obviously when you get your delivery, it's somewhat physical in nature. So I mean, it's still to see how much of that will completely go to that e-commerce nature of transacting, and that I think there is still an element of personal behavior, especially in certain types of products and businesses, where you cannot remove that, especially in banking scenario, where previous relationships with customers, whether they are a business and they grew their business, or they're an HNI, or they were someone and they continue to bank, all of those are still intact. I don't know how much, of that is suddenly changed, that people are suddenly changing because of this digital world where you can't know what's happening, and everything is kind of open. So the traditional means, I think, will still prevail. But the digital means are still around volumes, around a different customer base, around a new customer base also. So that's kind of what, and yeah, a lot of our technologies definitely help in knowing where to. So there's an aspect of knowing, socially where customers are, what they're doing, and how do you target them. So that's something what we're seeing.
Right, sir. Right. Thank you, Ankeet. And Subraneel, I would like to ask you one question. Subraneel from Subraneel, scalability and agility is one of the challenges amid these pandemic times, and I would like to ask you that how these emerging technology can ensure scalability and agility to these organizations in these pandemic times. Please throw some lights.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for the question, Kartik. So, see, AI models, AI projects is not only about development of machine learning models. So there is, while that's important, model design, training, everything, but there are a lot of other things which are also associated with it. So checking what is the hardware configuration which is going to be there, and how are you going to expand it when you go to the production layer, from testing, training to testing to production. And then there are a whole lot of other things which are very process driven, like data collection, labeling, verification, a lot of process management, feedback, monitoring. Quite a few things are there. So one of the things which AI project teams tell us is that if they're able to imbibe some of the best practices which are used in the development industry, something like DevOps, ML Ops, those kind of frameworks which are used, and some kind of orchestration can be done with the entire all the mechanics, all the pipeline, all the entire process flow. Then it will be very very easy, or I would say planned to do the manage the scalability. In terms of hardware capabilities, one can start with relatively inexpensive workstations with RTX GPU capabilities and scale it up to a cluster kind of an environment where a higher HGX kind of GPUs are there and terabytes of memory which is there. And one can also see things like uh, if you following this practice, then you can also see that there could be some orchestration platforms which are available today in whether it's as a productized or even in the open frameworks which are there. So intelligent computing orchestration layers are there, which allow you to choose what is the sizing of hardware you want to start with when you start the testing and training, and when you go into the production level, how do you scale it up? Sometimes multiple AI projects are running, in a single cluster also. How are you able to assign different areas within the clusters on the across the AI workloads? So this kind of a overall planning, if it is done, especially on an on-prem environment, which is very popular in banks and financial institutions, then I think it will be very, very useful. And today, multiple AI projects, they might follow different frameworks. So the system has to be such that it can support multiple AI frameworks. Lenovo has something called Lenovo Brain, which is an AI open innovation framework, and which is very useful
Okay.
for AI developers, and a LICO software which is there, which helps in all of this, apart from the GPU capabilities in the servers.
Right, right. Thank you for enlightening us, Subraneel. And I think we are running out of time. So I'll ask and request each of you to give your closing remarks, not more than 1 minute. So I'll start with Utpal from Yes Bank.
Yeah. So I think my recommendation will be although it is a very bad time, but let's our startup, our fintechs, our other companies, even the academia, let's come together and at least embrace these technologies, and if you can bring some innovative solutions into this space, I think it will be brilliant. So although it is a bad time, but it is also opportunity for us. I mean, if you talk about Indian perspective, right? So I'd welcome Indian fintechs and academia to collaborate and bring those brilliant solutions.
Thank you, Utpal. Shibu from Indian Bank, please.
Yeah, Mr. Kartik. Now we are all going through very bad patches, especially in banking environment. What are the things that have happened. So many unfortunate results also happened. Also happened in our bank, including our colleagues, our superiors. So very bad patch we are passing through. So of course, alerts in this environment, what alerts can do is not only the technology perspective, it is for the people perspective also. What are the best things we can do for the organization to save people as well as to continue the business? That means in a BCP environment, not very kind of technological kind of things. In a people perspective, this kind of seminars or meetings can be organized. That will be hugely benefited for all the people, not on the terms of business, but on the life of people, which is more important than any BCP point of view for any organization. So this can be conducted by Elets, and I again personally thanks Elets for this kind of.
Thank you, Mr. Shibu, for your closing remarks. Mr. Ankeet, please, from MapmyIndia.
Yeah, so I think it's this disruption is is probably brought in so many more opportunities for everyone to relook their businesses. I think if you fully adopt all the technologies that were mentioned by all the panelists and their opinions, it can definitely make our businesses way more profitable also, because banking as a system is technology first. Always, there are a bunch of numbers in a database. So as more technology is used, I think definitely companies can grow and grow in a manner that's very, very lean as you use this, the cloud and everything else. And yeah, thanks for Elets to organize this, and as we look forward to seeing more of this utilization in the Indian industry, especially among core Indian companies, because I think only the local companies will be able to understand problems, which is as what we're seeing right now in our daily lives of like really huge problems in the industry, and only Indian companies will be able to understand what's happening internally. They would be more relaxed. They would put their guards down. They would open things up more. They'll be open to more innovation. So I think it's a time for kind of a recorrection in that landscape also. That's my thought.
Thank you, Mr. Ankeet. Mr. Subraneel from Lenovo.
Yeah, thanks. So I think the wave two has been especially devastating for everybody. Uh, but this entire pandemic is actually forcing us to change, forcing us to at least think differently. And we can all use this opportunity to become more innovative, embrace change, embrace new technologies, and definitely AI/ML, associated technologies, IoT. These are new technologies that we can embrace during these periods. New thoughts are coming in how to deal with the things which we have never dealt before. So the scale is very different, and we can definitely use this as an opportunity to embrace new things.
Right, right. So in the end, I thank all of you, and just a message that our country, the world will recover, will come out of it, these difficult times strongly, and these sectors will also transform. And I request all of you to keep innovating as you always do. You are leaders in your own areas, and keep innovating. Stay safe. And now over to you, Hina.
Yeah. Thank you so much to all the panelists. I mean, this was a wonderful session because we have the perspective from both the industry and the corporates here together, how they're joining hands and getting this, the delivering the expectations of the BFSI industry. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And
Thanks
thank
a
you,
lot.
Kartik sir, for moderating it so well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Hina.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for being here, all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.